Hey, Soul Stories fam. We've got a sweet and totally swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in. The gala night was like a giant fishbowl. Glittering chandeliers, sparkling gowns, and round, polished smiles swimming back and forth. Adrian stood in the middle of the hall, his Windsor knot tie neat, his handsome face so striking that photographers kept clicking nonstop just because the light hit his jawline perfectly. He smiled politely, nodded at the right rhythm, yet felt as empty as a drained champagne glass. At 6 o'clock, he sent a single text to his assistant. "Start the rumor." The assistant called back immediately, voice trembling. "Are you sure, sir?" "Never been more sure," Adrian replied, his tone eerily calm. 5 minutes. The plan was simple. Leak the rumor. Adrian is bankrupt. No documents, no press confirmations, just enough to spread like the smell of fresh bread in a kitchen. Everyone senses it before anyone asks for the recipe. It was, admittedly, a foolish game. But after years of wading through empty compliments, he wanted to know, when money was gone, what would remain. Rebecca arrived as the clock nudged 7. She was as dazzling as a jewelry ad. Bare shoulders, diamonds at her throat, smoky eyes. She walked straight to him, hooked her arm through his, her smile memorized to perfection. "Darling, tonight we have to take pictures with the sponsors and the ambassadors table too. Please don't talk about your little charity." "It's boring," Adrian chuckled. "I'll try to be only a little boring." Music swelled. The host invited the golden couple of the festive season on stage. Hundreds of eyes, dozens of phones with cameras ready. Adrian planned to say a few words of thanks, but then someone's phone buzzed, then the next, then another table. Heads dropped, eyes widened, a loud "Oh my God" popped like a lid slamming shut. The rumor spread faster than the violins. Adrienne Laurent lost everything. Mortgaged the ocean project? Emergency board meeting? More exclamation marks, more shock emojis. Those polished smiles twisted into question marks. Rebecca froze for a second. She pulled her arm away like she had touched a hot stove. "What is this?" "A breeze," Adrian said, trying to joke. "I'm not joking. Are you bankrupt?" "If I say no, would you believe me?" Rebecca held his gaze for a long beat, then looked around as if measuring the room's temperature. She pressed her lips together, turned to the microphone, and gave the most professional smile of her life. "I'm sorry, I want to announce the cancellation of our engagement. Because," she faltered a second, searching, "because we realize we're not compatible." Not compatible. Two neat words shut a door in its frame. The front row went silent. The host swallowed hard. The sponsor's logo on the screen suddenly blinks. Someone at the back table clapped softly. The kind of clap from someone who had just dodged trouble. Then the whispers erupted, bubbling like foam. An old friend of Adrian's, who once called him brother, walked up, patted his shoulder with practiced dignity. "Oh, are you all right? Hang in there. I need to greet the chairman. Catch you later." "Catch you later. Later when?" Investor A texted, "Meeting tomorrow." Investor B, "If needed, I'll wait and see." A board member wrote bluntly, "No statements." Adrian's phone buzzed like a panicked cricket. He stared at it a second, then flipped it face down. Rebecca had already left the stage. A few reporters chased her, cameras fluttering like startled birds. The poor host then announced the silent auction. For the children. The mood was tangled, like a tie knotted backward. Adrian stood still, smiling faintly. Smiling because his loyalty test worked too well. Smiling because he was the fool who invented it. Smiling because he didn't know what else to do. He backed away from the spotlight and slipped through the side path into the hallway. The door closed behind him, shutting out music and murmurs with thick wood. The hall was empty, with the air conditioning humming evenly. A sign, "Staff Only," hung loosely. The scent of floor wax, lilies from a vase at the far end, and the faint metallic tang of the emergency stairwell. His shoes tapped against the stone floor, sounding lonely. He sat on a leather bench near the exit door. His expensive tux wrinkled at the cuffs. The tie tightened like a noose. He loosened it, inhaled, then inhaled again. Suddenly, he remembered his small college apartment, the old aluminum pot, and a packet of instant noodles on the shelf. Back then, he had two things: time and dreams. Now he had everything, except the certainty that someone saw him as a person, not a smiling wallet. The phone kept buzzing. He opened it. A text from his mother. "Are you okay?" He typed, "I'm fine," but stopped. He wasn't fine. The feeling of being valued in 30 seconds had left a tiny scratch right across his heart. A group chat pinged. "Let's meet this weekend?" If we're still invited. The parentheses long and loose, like a string ready to slip away. Adrian leaned his head back, staring at the ceiling. A loyalty test. He had sworn never to fall into cheap emotional traps, yet he had staged an entire theater for one. Maybe he was too confident, maybe selfish, maybe just tired. The ballroom door cracked open, music leaked in, then cut off. A young waiter peeked out, startled to see him, hesitated, then frowned as if recalling the big news, bowed quickly, and shut the door again. Adrian let out a short laugh. Even the waiter was afraid to get close, like touching bad luck was contagious. In his pocket, a small slip of paper poked his side. He pulled it out. A list of people to photograph with tonight Rebecca had given him earlier. Next to sponsors' names, she had scribbled in pen. "Stand on the left to show the watch. PR loves it." He stared at the slanted writing and suddenly found it hilarious. He folded the paper, shoved it back in, like tucking away an old season. A faint squeak, squeak, echoed from the hallway's end, like small wheels rolling. The smell of cleaning fluid grew stronger. Adrian tilted his head. No one there. He realized he'd been sitting for 10 minutes and only now noticed how pleasant the scent was. Simple, clean, not trying to prove anything. The phone lit up again. Absolutely no press response from PR. 9 o'clock meeting tomorrow from the CFO. "Don't worry, I'm always here." From Mom. He replied to her first. "I'm fine. I just need some air." He walked to the small window at the end of the hall. Outside, the city glittered like the sky spilled onto the ground. Somewhere far off, sirens wailed, red and green lights danced. He pressed his forehead to the cool glass, suddenly wishing to vanish from every title. Adrian, before the meetings. Adrian, before the articles. Adrian, before picking the right tie for the wrong person. The staff-only door cracked slightly, a ribbon of yellow light spilling across the tiles. Inside, faint chatter, someone laughing about something ordinary, like the vacuum broke again today. So simple it softened his chest. He sat back down. Hunger struck, a raw hunger no caviar canapé could cure. He pictured a steaming bowl of noodles topped with a sunny-side egg. He wished someone would ask him not, "What's your plan for the shareholders?" but "Have you eaten?" Suddenly a thought flickered, making him chuckle dryly. Maybe next time I should test people by not testing them at all. However, wisdom always comes to the fore. For now, he was just the man left behind on stage. The ballroom door opened again, and a group of guests passed by, laughing, trailing heavy perfume. They didn't notice him. Good. Adrian stretched his legs and loosened his shoulders. The squeaky wheels drew closer, then stopped. Silence as soft as soap bubbles. He glanced down at his polished shoes, spotting a thin streak of water shaped like an exclamation point. A janitor's cart stood a few paces away, with a blue bucket, clear spray bottles, and a cheap plastic water bottle forgotten there. Cold light glimmered on the bucket's surface, rippling like background music from another world, far from the ballroom symphony. Adrian swallowed a sigh. In the ballroom, he was breaking news. In this hallway, he was just a tired man. Maybe for the first time in a long while, he had quiet enough to hear himself, to hear his heartbeat steady, to hear the patient squeak of small wheels rolling without show. He leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. Tonight, the loyalty test had come to an end. Results. Rebecca chose to leave. Friends chose silence. Partners chose distance. And he chose to sit here in the scent of floor cleaner, where no one demanded he shine. And for the first time, Adrian truly felt lonely. So lonely that only one small, simple thought remained in his mind, untouched by stocks or assets. I wish someone would just ask me, "Are you okay?" At the far end of the hall, The faint scrape of a broom echoed. The night carried on, slowly. And somewhere behind that staff-only door, fate was rolling up its sleeves. The hallway was still silent, with only the slow creak, creak of cleaning cart wheels rolling by. Adrian sat slumped, idly twisting the cap of an empty water bottle. His blurred reflection in the glass door looked no different from a gambler who had just been tossed out of a casino. The sound of a broom brushing the floor, swish, swish, broke the quiet. Adrian lifted his head, and for the first time that evening, he saw a face completely unfamiliar in this sea of acquaintances. A young woman in a dark blue janitor's uniform, her hair tied neatly back, held a broom nearly as tall as herself. She paused, stared at him for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed. "Why are you sitting there like a puppy that's been abandoned?" Adrian blinked in surprise. People usually called him a successful young businessman, the white knight of the investment world. No one had ever compared him to a stray dog on the porch. Yet her tone was innocent, not the least bit mocking. He smirked. "At least a stray puppy gets sympathy. Me? Not so sure." The girl shrugged, leaned her broom against the wall, and pulled a cheap plastic water bottle from her cart, the kind the hotel reserved for staff. She held it out to him. "Drink? You look like you're dehydrated." Adrian accepted it, twisted off the cap. The cool water slid down his parched throat, oddly soothing. He glanced at the smudged label and chuckled. "I'm used to drinking the kind with the Snow Mountain logo. But this one tastes better." "Of course," the girl replied matter-of-factly. "Water is all just H2O. Only the label costs more or less." Adrian nearly choked. He had never heard anything so true, yet so funny. He laughed, leaning his head back against the seat, laughing until she frowned at him. "Are you okay? I didn't mean to drive you insane." "No." Adrian shook his head, wiping at his eyes. It's been a long time since I heard something honest." She put her hands on her hips, tilted her head, assessing him. "Seriously? You look sharp as hell. Bet you've got 100 people flattering you every day." "Well, yeah, pretty much." "Then I get it. You're drunk on compliments. Now even a normal sentence sounds shocking to you." Adrian burst out laughing again. In that moment, he felt an odd sense of relief. No dazzling lights, no hollow applause. Just a stranger talking to him like he was a neighbor she just bumped into in the elevator. "I'm Ava," she said, offering a bright smile along with her hand. "I'm a night shift janitor here at the hotel." Adrian, he hesitated, then thought, why introduce himself as real estate millionaire investor? Instead, he simply said, "Temporarily unemployed." Ava blinked, then shrugged as if it didn't matter in the slightest. "Unemployment's not so bad. At least you don't have to spend all day buried in meetings. Me, once I finish mopping the hall, I can sit down, listen to music, eat cookies." Adrian almost laughed out loud. Who in the world would compare mopping floors to unemployment? Yet it didn't sound mocking, just her perspective. Ava perched on the edge of the bench, just a few handspans away. She tilted her head, meeting his eyes directly. "But really, are you okay? You look like you just got kicked in the face." Adrian froze, then gave a soft laugh. "You guessed right. I knew it. Guys in tuxedos usually fall into two categories. Either just signed a $100 million deal or just lost their girlfriend." He raised his brows. "You run into this a lot?" "Sure, I work at a hotel. Every gala night has a few husbands scolded by their wives, a few wives ignored by their husbands, and a few men nursing heartbreak. They all look the same, funny and pitiful." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. "Guess I'm in the last category." "Congrats! You're officially a member of the Hotel Hallway Heartbreak Club." They both laughed at the same time. The sound echoed through the cold corridor, somehow lifting the heaviness in the air. Adrian leaned back, watching Ava for a long moment. She wasn't wearing makeup, just bright eyes and an honest smile. No probing, no attempt to please, simply caring. Inside him, some quiet string vibrated. He thought, maybe tonight wasn't a complete failure after all. Ava stood, picked up her broom. "Well, I have to finish mopping. Otherwise, my manager will chew me out tomorrow." "Yeah, thank you." For the water. Don't mention it. Oh, and Ava turned back, winking. Next time, bring your own bottle. That way, nobody mistakes you for a thirsty stray dog again. Adrian's mouth fell open before laughter spilled out. The staff-only door closed behind Ava's figure, leaving Adrian alone on the bench. But this time, he didn't feel lonely. Instead, something new stirred inside him. Lightness, warmth, and a flicker of anticipation. And he told himself, Adrien Laurent, maybe for the first time in years, you just met someone who doesn't care about your money. And that's the best thing of all. After that night in the hallway, Adrian found himself returning to the hotel more often than necessary. He told his assistant, I need some air. The assistant hesitated before asking, air or someone named Ava? Adrian shot him a glare and pretended to be busy opening his calendar, which was entirely empty. This time he decided to commit fully to his poor man disguise. The sports car stayed locked away in the underground garage. He hailed a taxi instead, dressed in a plain shirt and a pair of jeans faded nearly white. He had to ask his stylist to scuff and bleach them until they looked authentically worn. The expensive watch was tucked into a drawer, replaced by a scratched plastic one that looked like it had survived a few battles. The mirror reflected an Adrian stripped of his glittering armor, and oddly he felt lighter. The next evening, Adrian showed up in the staff lobby carrying 2 sodas from the vending machine. He hadn't even had time to glance around before Ava emerged from the corner, pushing her broom cart, her face bright as a newly replaced light bulb. Well, look who it is, Mr. Unemployed. Ava waved. You look even poorer than yesterday. Progress. Such a professional evaluation, Adrian chuckled, handing her one of the cans. I've even practiced walking like someone broke. Slow steps, minimal spending. Walking slowly has nothing to do with money, Ava replied dryly. That's just tight shoes. Anyway, what are you doing here at this hour? I needed a quiet place to think. Besides, Adrian glanced around. There's someone here who gives me free water. Ava snorted, wiping down the counter before sitting on the edge of the bench. The two of them sipped soda while the vacuum hummed somewhere in the distance. So, are you really unemployed? Ava asked. Not nosy, more like commenting on the weather. Yeah, for now. I'm considering a career shift. To what? Not sure. I'm good at attending meetings, reading 300-page reports, taking notes without typos. Sounds boring. It is, Adrian laughed. Even I'm getting sleepy just saying it. Ava tilted her head. Well, do you want to learn how to sweep floors? I'll teach you for free. Guaranteed successful career switch. Do I get a diploma? You get a cleaning rag, 100% cotton. They burst out laughing together. The ease between them was startling, as if they'd known each other longer than just one hallway night. In the days that followed, they frequently crossed paths, sometimes by the emergency exit, sometimes in the staff lounge, sometimes in the small courtyard where rugs were left to air out. Each meeting was brief, yet always long enough to leave a lasting impression of a laugh. Once, Adrian tried to carry Ava's water bucket, attempting to prove he was a strong, unemployed man. The bucket slipped, and water splashed everywhere. Ava dodged just in time. Adrian ended up soaked from knees to ankles. I'm so sorry, Adrian panicked. I'll clean it up. With what? With this, Ava handed him the floor squeegee like a wooden sword to a rookie soldier. Rule number 1, don't fight the floor. The floor wins. You smooth it gently. Smooth it? Yes, light, steady, patient. Adrian obeyed, as serious as if he were solving a $1,000,000 equation. Ava folded her arms, smirking. Not bad. 6 out of 10. Only 6? You can retake the exam. I'm a tough grader. Adrian laughed. For the first time in years, the golden boy who'd always been praised was actually criticized, and strangely, he enjoyed it. That 6 out of 10 made him want to try again. The staff lounge had a wheezing microwave and a row of rusted lockers. Ava opened her lunchbox, the scent of fried eggs filling the room. Adrian unwrapped a rushed sandwich. Want to trade? Ava offered. My eggs are really good. I shouldn't. Oh, come on, you're unemployed and still picky? Adrian surrendered. One bite of the egg lit up his eyes. This is delicious. Of course. The secret's homemade fish sauce. You made it? Number I bought it from my neighbor. But I did steal her recipe for smiling. Smile first, and everything tastes good after. Adrian nodded, chewing thoughtfully. Ava checked her cracked old phone. Break's over. I've got to go. She stood, but before leaving, placed a small pack of cookies in his hand. For when life tastes bland. These will sweeten it a little. Thanks, Queen of the Mop. And you're Prince of Empty Pockets. They both laughed again, loud and easy. Sometimes it was only quick text messages. Ava rarely used social media. Her phone was so old the screen looked like fractured ice. Still, they had saved each other's numbers. In Ava's phone, Adrian was Mr. Unemployed. In Adrian's phone, she was Ava Mop Queen. Have you eaten? Yes. Did you get enough sleep? Enough, except when the vacuum rebels. I'll bring mints tomorrow to cool it down. Mints won't fix the vacuum, but they'll fix the person holding it. Their tiny exchanges were warm, like an old microwave struggling to heat a meal. One rainy night, lightning flashed beyond the glass doors. Ava hauled rolled-up carpets, her shoulders damp with rain. Adrian stood under the awning, watching. Do you have a raincoat? I do, but it has a hole shaped like a broken heart, Ava said so seriously that Adrian almost believed her. Whose heart? The coat's. That afternoon, Ava sent a short, blunt text. 6 p.m. supermarket. There's a sale. Adrian stared at the message and burst out laughing. He had received hundreds of emails beginning with Dear Mr. Adrian attached to million-dollar proposals, but never once had anyone invited him out with a discount sale. He arrived on time, dressed in a wrinkled shirt and old shoes to fit the scene. Ava stood outside the budget supermarket, her hair tied high, wrapped in a worn gray jacket. She waved both hands excitedly. Hurry up! The discounted noodles are almost gone. Adrian blinked, still trying to process, when Ava grabbed his wrist and dragged him in as if they were running a marathon. The moment they entered, they were swallowed by the throng of shoppers. A glaring sign read, Instant Noodles, 50% off. And right there, a group of housewives were practically sparring over the shelves. Adrian got pulled into the frenzy. His hand had just touched a pack when Ava snatched it away, with lightning speed, holding her prize high. Ha! Fast hands survive. That's cheating. Adrian feigned outrage. In a supermarket, there's no cheating, only slowpokes. Adrian couldn't hold back his laughter, and soon enough he grabbed another pack, waving it like a trophy to restore his honor. Ava pouted, but her eyes sparkled with childlike joy. They wandered from aisle to aisle, competing for discounted toilet paper rolls like two mischievous school kids. For Adrian, it was the first time he had experienced the chaos of bargain shopping. Exhausting, yes, but oddly thrilling. Usually I just make a call and someone delivers a whole box to my door, he confessed. Then you've missed out on the glory of winning the last toilet paper roll. Ava lifted her prize high like a golden cup. Adrian laughed so hard that people passing by turned to look. That evening, Ava brought Adrian back to her small apartment. It was on the 3rd floor with walls chipped in places, old but tidy furniture. On the shelf sat a tiny cactus with a note taped beside it. Don't you dare die. Adrian's eyes roamed until they stopped at a weathered bookshelf. No finance manuals, only comic books, cookbooks, and a few romance novels. He smiled softly. Your place. It's really charming. Charming because of that cactus. I've kept it alive for 2 years. It still hasn't abandoned me, unlike some people. Adrian was silent for a beat, unsure whether to laugh or feel the sting behind her words. But Ava had already spun toward the kitchen, her voice bright. All right, here's the kitchen. You're helping. They laid out the ingredients, a pack of noodles, a few eggs, water spinach, a bottle of fish sauce. Adrian eyed the sauce warily, taking a step back. This stuff smells too strong. The strong smell is the flavor. Just try it. Ava cracked eggs, whisking them quickly in the pan, her movements confident like an artist at work. Adrian was assigned to wash the vegetables. He splashed water everywhere, soaking the counter. Are you washing the veggies or giving them a bath? Ava teased. I want them absolutely clean. If vegetables are absolutely clean, there's nothing left to eat. Adrian froze for a moment, then broke into laughter. Dinner was served on an old wooden table. A plate of fried eggs with fish sauce, stir-fried greens, a simple bowl of soup, and a shared pack of noodles. Adrian sat down, staring at the modest spread with a nervousness he hadn't even felt at five-star banquets. He picked up a piece of egg and took a bite. The rich, savory flavor flooded his tongue. His eyes widened. My God! How is it this good? It's only good because you're hungry, Ava laughed. Number, it's really good, better than steak and wine. Ava half believed him, half doubted. But Adrian's sincere gaze made her burst out laughing. After the meal, they leaned against the wall sharing a soda. Outside, the sounds of traffic drifted faintly through the night. Inside, the little room was peaceful, filled only with their laughter and scraps of small talk. Ava told him about her school days, working countless part-time jobs, getting scolded by customers, wages docked by harsh bosses. Yet her voice carried no bitterness, only a vitality that made Adrian's chest feel lighter. He didn't have to analyze contracts or weigh stocks. All he had to do was nod, laugh, and for once feel like an ordinary man. What about you? Ava asked. Before you were unemployed, what did you do? Adrian hesitated, then smiled faintly. Meetings, endless paperwork. Honestly, boring stuff. Then unemployment is your blessing, Ava declared with a nod. Now you can learn a real trade, such as frying eggs. Adrian laughed, raising his soda to clink against hers. Deal. That night, when Adrian left her apartment and stepped down the narrow staircase, he looked up at the starry sky. For the first time in years, his mind wasn't on assets or reputation. He thought only of the taste of fried eggs, Ava's laughter, and the serenity that had settled deep in his bones. Adrian whispered to himself, maybe this is the real life I've been missing all along. That morning, the hotel buzzed more than usual because of a major conference. Ava pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway, strands of hair damp with sweat. Adrian, as always, happened to show up, paper coffee cup in hand. By now, he had grown used to waiting for these small, stolen moments just to see her. They were mid-conversation when Paul, the receptionist known for his sharp tongue, passed by. He cast Ava a sneering look and smirked. Make sure you scrub well. If a guest slips, no one's going to blame anyone but the janitor. Ava froze for a second, but quietly continued mopping the floor. Paul didn't stop, his tone dripping with contempt. Honestly, people like you are only fit to keep your head down and clean up trash. Don't bother dreaming of looking up. Adrian's grip on his coffee tightened until his knuckles whitened. A single thought struck through him, sharp as ice. Ava's worth more than 10 men like him combined. He wanted to leap up, to throw Paul's cruelty back in his face, but Ava's calm, steady eyes stopped him. This was her workplace, her territory. If Adrian made a scene, it would only put her in an even harder position. He drew a deep breath, strolling casually toward the reception desk. On the counter sat a messy stack of files. A few invoices bore obvious tampering, numbers rewritten in a different color ink. Fraud, clear as day. Pretending to search for a brochure, Adrian accidentally let one page slip to the floor, landing just as the manager walked by. What's this? The manager bent down, frowning. Why have the numbers been altered so blatantly? Paul startled, his face draining of color. Must be a mistake. A mistake? The manager's voice hardened. I'll be reviewing every file. If I find evidence of fraud, you are aware of the consequences. The air around them stirred with murmurs. Paul stammered before retreating, stripped of his earlier arrogance. Meanwhile, Ava continued mopping with quiet patience, as if nothing had happened. A colleague approached and patted her shoulder. Don't let him get to you, Ava. Honestly, everyone knows you work harder than most here. A few others nodded in agreement. For the first time, Ava was defended openly. From the corner, Adrian sipped his coffee, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. No need for boasting or shouting. One subtle touch had been enough to let the truth reveal itself. By late afternoon, Ava found him in the back courtyard. She planted her hands on her hips, her gaze both amused and suspicious. Hey, did you arrange something? What do you mean? I just dropped a piece of paper. Dropped it at the perfect time. In the perfect place? What a coincidence. Adrian shrugged, feigning innocence. Pure luck. You're good at these little mysteries, aren't you? Her words sounded like reproach, but her lips curved into a smile. She knew he had stood up for her, but in a way that hadn't embarrassed her. Instead, he'd made sure her colleagues saw her with respect. They sat together on the back steps, sharing the pack of cookies Ava had brought. You're not upset about what Paul said? Adrian asked quietly. I'm used to it, Ava shrugged. But today was different. Today, for the first time, someone spoke up on my behalf. Adrian held her gaze for a long moment, then smiled. Because you deserve it. Ava rolled her eyes, though her tone carried a teasing lilt. You sound like some lawyer making a defense speech. Maybe I studied law once upon a time. Then you must have gone unemployed for losing a case. Adrian laughed, feeling an unexpected lightness settle in. In that moment, he realized something. To stand by someone didn't always mean throwing money or raising your voice. Sometimes the smallest act was enough to let them know they weren't alone. When Adrian finally left the hotel, the sunset stretched long across the pavement. His thoughts were clear. Ava was not just a janitor, not just what others chose to see. She was strong, kind, a character worth more than 10 Pauls combined. And somehow Adrian knew with certainty he would want to keep standing on her side, not just today, but for many days to come. That weekend, Ava sent Adrian another of her blunt little texts. 3 p.m. Community Center. Coming? Adrian was sitting alone in his office, a thick stack of reports spread in front of him. Yet he had no desire to read a single page. He glanced at the message, and a smile tugged at his lips. I'm coming, he replied without hesitation. The community center stood in an old neighborhood, its walls streaked with peeling paint, the iron gate groaning on its hinges. Inside, a wide room held worn wooden desks and chairs, the walls decorated with children's crayon drawings in every color. Laughter spilled from every corner. Ava greeted him with just a nod, no ceremony, no introductions, before plunging straight into the cluster of kids waiting for her. Adrian lingered awkwardly, a tourist lost in the wrong city. Why are you standing there? Ava called. Roll up your sleeves and get in here. Startled, Adrian quickly shrugged off his jacket and rolled up his shirt sleeves. He lowered himself onto a tiny chair, feeling like a giant awkwardly squeezed into a doll's classroom. A little boy shoved a red crayon into his hand. Uncle, color this for me. Adrian glanced down at the paper. A house, a sun, a tree. Easy, he thought, but after only a few strokes, his son was already bleeding past the lines, smudging into a lopsided mess. Ha 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 ha! Uncle colors so bad, the kids shrieked with laughter. Flushing, Adrian put on a stern face. This is abstract art, you know. What kind of art looks like a tomato? A little girl piped up, sending the whole group into hysterics. From across the room, Ava burst out laughing. For the first time, she saw Adrian, always so polished, so composed, flustered like a schoolboy. After coloring time, Ava split the children into groups for spelling practice. Adrian was assigned the role of reader. Holding up the alphabet chart, he enunciated slowly, A, B, C. The children echoed him, but every time they reached Q, they stretched it into a dramatic coo, turning the class into a choir of mischief. Adrian dropped his head into his hands while Ava laughed so hard she nearly doubled over. What kind of teaching is that? She teased. I'm an expert in contracts, not the ABCs, Adrian protested. A little girl pointed her tiny finger at the last letter. Uncle, read this one. Z. Wrong! It's Z! The kids chorused. Adrian raised both hands in defeat, and the room erupted into laughter. During break, Ava brought out a box of cookies. The children swarmed, each trying to grab the best piece. Adrian reached for one too, only to be warned by a boy half his size. You're too big. If you eat too much, there won't be any left for us. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll just take one, Adrian said solemnly. One? The biggest one? The kids shouted together. Adrian collapsed dramatically against the desk, pretending to be defeated, and the children howled with laughter. Ava shook her head, but her heart warmed. Adrian didn't act like some untouchable adult. He didn't mind making a fool of himself if it meant the children were happy, and that kind of laughter. It lit up the whole room. When the session ended, Ava and Adrian stacked the chairs and tables. She sat on the steps, drinking from her water bottle, and sighed. I've been teaching here for 3 years. No pay, just a few snacks of support. But I can't walk away. Because you care about them? Adrian asked softly. Yes. Some of their parents are too busy. Some can't afford tutoring. I think that if these kids can read and write, maybe they'll have a chance to open another door. Adrian stayed silent. He looked around at the shabby classroom, the crooked letters on the board, then back at Ava. In her bright eyes, he saw something he had never once glimpsed among the wealthy circle he lived in, a warmth and resolve that no money could measure. What do you think? Ava asked. Adrian smiled, shaking his head. I think I turned the sun into a tomato. Ava burst into laughter, tilting her head toward him. That's exactly why they liked you. They don't need someone perfect, just a big guy willing to play along. Adrian froze. Her playful words struck deeper than she realized. For so long, he had been labeled the success, the millionaire, the big partner. No one had ever called him by that simple name. On the way home, Ava walked beside him, swinging her small grocery bag. Adrian, for the first time, didn't feel like he was walking in the shoes of a CEO or a wealthy man. He was simply a guy who had just been laughed at by a group of children, and strangely, it felt better than any boardroom victory. Looking up at the fiery red sky, Adrian thought, maybe being called the big funny uncle is worth more than all the titles I've ever had. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home, to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. The summer rain came suddenly, as if someone in the sky had just remembered, oh, I forgot to water the plants today. On the sidewalk outside the community center, people scattered, rushing for cover. Adrian and Ava stood under a small awning, the downpour crashing in front of them, icy droplets spraying their hands. Ava shivered. Her thin janitor's uniform was already damp. Adrian said nothing. He simply slipped off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Hey, what are you doing? Ava looked up, eyes wide. Keeping you dry. But you'll get soaked. It's fine. I've got a naturally waterproof shirt. Adrian smirked, adding just enough humor to soften the gesture. Ava let out a small laugh, but her chest tightened strangely. The warmth from his jacket seeped through her skin, warmer than any umbrella could ever be. A sudden slip on the wet tiles made Ava stumble. Adrian caught her instinctively, and in that instant, she fell neatly into his arms. The pounding rain swallowed all other sound, leaving only the frantic rhythm of Ava's heart. The distance between them vanished. Their breaths mingled. Adrian looked down into her flushed face, and Ava looked up, meeting his gaze, deep, steady, carrying something unspoken. The moment stretched, lasting longer than it should have, long enough for both of them to forget the storm raging outside. Sorry, Ava murmured, pushing gently away, her eyes darting aside. It's all right. Adrian stepped back too, though the light in his eyes lingered, impossible to hide. That evening, they took shelter in a small cafe until the rain eased. Golden light spilled over the wooden tables, wrapping the place in warmth. Ava cupped a mug of hot cocoa, pressing her hands against it to chase away the chill. Adrian sat across from her, his gaze unconsciously following her every small movement. What are you staring at? Ava blinked. At the cup. The cup. There's nothing special about it. True, but when someone's holding it, it becomes special. Ava laughed softly, though her heart skipped a beat. Quickly, she steered the conversation toward the children at the community center, trying to mask her fluster. Adrian listened, nodding, occasionally tossing in a teasing remark that made Ava giggle. Her laughter, mingling with the cozy hum of the cafe, lifted the heaviness from his chest like it had never existed. In the days that followed, those sparks of something more appeared more and more often. One morning, Adrian came to help Ava tidy the storage room. As she reached up for a box, it slipped, and Adrian caught it just in time, his body brushing close behind her. In that brief instant, Ava could hear her heartbeat loud in her ears. Another time, She picked up the pen Adrian had left behind. When she handed it back, their fingers brushed, only for a second, yet enough to make them both freeze. Each time their eyes met, time seemed to pause, stealing an extra beat from the clock. But whenever the line between them threatened to blur, both would retreat back to friends. Ava was afraid of fooling herself. Adrian, unemployed or not, still carried an aura of a man from another world. She feared that when the truth surfaced, these fragile feelings would vanish like mist. Adrian was afraid too, afraid that confessing meant revealing who he truly was. Adrian Laurent, the millionaire who had staged that ridiculous bankruptcy test. And if she knew, would Ava still look at him the same way? So they stayed silent, hiding their hearts behind jokes and fleeting touches. One afternoon, as they parted ways at the center's door, Ava teased, "You know what you remind me of?" "What?" "An umbrella. Because I shield you from the rain. Number, because you show up when I need you, then fold back up, never really saying what you mean." Adrian chuckled, though something stirred in his eyes. He wanted to say, "I don't want to be just an umbrella. I want to be your whole sky." But instead he replied, "Then next time I'll open before the rain falls." Ava nodded softly, lips curving, but her heart beat faster all the same. That night, Adrian sat in his luxury apartment, staring at the city lights. His laptop glowed with unanswered emails, but his mind was elsewhere, on Ava, wrapped in his jacket, her bright eyes in the rain, the accidental fall into his arms. He whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time to face the truth." But not yet, not tonight. And so, their hearts kept playing the delicate game of boundaries. Friends on the surface, but beating with a rhythm that betrayed them. A quiet affection had begun to take root, nameless, unspoken. Yet in every glance that lingered too long, in every shy smile that lingered too sweet, it was already growing, slowly but surely, like a seed waiting for its moment to sprout beneath the summer rain. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home, to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Weeks passed, and Adrian realized his heart had crossed far beyond a passing interest. He thought of Ava even while sitting in boardrooms surrounded by shareholders, even while dining in the most luxurious restaurants. A short, curt text from her could make him laugh like a boy. He knew now, this wasn't a game anymore. He truly cared for her. But the deeper he fell, the greater the fear grew. Sooner or later, Ava would learn the truth, that Adrian Laurent was not poor, not unemployed. He was the owner of dozens of projects, the man behind the very galas where she had once scrubbed floors. And worst of all, the bankruptcy was nothing but a foolish test he himself had staged. If she knew, would she ever look at him with those clear, trusting eyes again? Adrian spent many sleepless nights torn between silence and confession. At last he decided he would tell her, whatever the cost, because the longer he hid it, the greater the risk of losing her entirely. That afternoon, he asked Ava to meet him at a small cafe near the community center. The place was quiet, the late sunlight slanting across the wooden table, casting her face in a gentle golden glow. Ava held her mug of cocoa, her bright eyes innocent as always. She teased lightly, "Why do you look so tense? Don't tell me you've run out of money for discount noodles again." Adrian swallowed hard, his chest tightening. He wished he could laugh as usual, but his throat constricted. Setting his coffee down, he looked straight into her eyes. "Ava, I need to tell you the truth." Her brows drew together. "That sounds serious." He drew a deep breath. "I'm not poor. I'm not unemployed. The truth is, I'm a millionaire." The room seemed to sink into silence. Ava blinked, thinking he must be joking, but Adrian wasn't smiling. "What?" her voice caught. "That whole bankruptcy story at the gala. It was just a test. I wanted to know who would stay by my side, not for money." Each word dropped like a stone. Ava sat frozen for a few seconds, then let out a brittle laugh, but it was sharp with bitterness. "So I was. Your test?" "No!" Adrian shook his head desperately. You weren't, at least not like that. It started with Rebecca at the gala, but then I met you and everything changed. Changed? Ava cut him off, her eyes blurring. You pretended to be broke, pretended to be unemployed, so I would believe I'd found a real friend. And now you tell me it was all a facade. Adrian clenched his fists. Ava, my feelings for you aren't fake. Everything I've felt, everything I've shown you is real. I was only stupid enough to think I could begin with a lie. Ava stayed silent, her lips trembling. Memories flooded her mind. The cheap supermarket runs, the fried egg dinners, the little text messages. She had believed all that simplicity was real. Now she saw it had been built on a pretense. She shot to her feet, the chair scraping against the floor. Do you know what I cherished most about you, Adrian? It was the simple truth. I thought you were different from every man I'd ever met, but you're worse. You played a loyalty game with someone's trust. Ava, please, listen to me. Enough. Her voice broke, eyes shining with unshed tears. I don't even know who you are anymore. She turned away. Her footsteps echoed on the wooden floor, each one stomping on Adrian's chest. He reached out, but didn't dare stop her. The cafe door slammed. Adrian collapsed into his chair, the evening light falling across his exhausted face. His coffee sat untouched, gone cold. This time the emptiness wasn't staged. This time he truly understood the meaning of loss. He thought, if this is the price of deception, then this is the heaviest of all, the price of losing the one person who had become everything. That night, Adrian sat in his private office, the city's neon glow spilling through the glass. Contracts piled high on his desk, but his mind was in chaos. He held his phone, staring at Ava's name on the screen, then sighed. The boss has never stared at his phone this much, came a female voice from the doorway. Adrian looked up. It was Claire, his longtime secretary. More than that, his trusted confidant. He gestured for her to sit. Claire, I've messed up. Not a deal this time, is it? She narrowed her eyes knowingly. Adrian gave a weary smile, then told her everything. The false bankruptcy rumor, the disguise of poverty, meeting Ava, and the disastrous confession that afternoon. Claire was quiet for a long moment before sighing. You're brilliant in business, Adrian, but in this, you were truly foolish. I know. Adrian bowed his head. I only wanted to find someone who didn't see me through my money. But in the end, I turned myself into a liar. She left, and I don't know how to bring her back. Claire studied him, her tone softening. I don't know much about love, but I know women. They can forgive poverty. They can forgive failure. What's hardest to forgive is dishonesty, especially when it touches trust. Adrian fell silent, her words pierced like needles. Then what should I do? His voice was low, fragile in a way it had never been. Claire tilted her head, thinking, then answered, Don't try to prove yourself with wealth. Prove it by being there. Walk beside her. Listen to her. Do the smallest things with consistency. And most importantly, this time, only the truth. No more tests. Adrian sat still, her words unlocking something inside him. At last he nodded, resolve returning to his eyes. Thank you, Claire. Maybe it's time I learn how to love without using my wallet. That rainstorm had stolen something from Adrian he never expected, Ava's trust. No matter how many nights he sat in his luxurious apartment, staring out at the glittering city lights, his mind kept circling back to the image of a petite woman in a blue uniform. Rebecca had left him when he went broke. Ava left him when she discovered he was rich. The irony cut deeper than any blade. But after talking with Claire, he finally understood. The problem wasn't money, it was deceit. He had turned love into a test. This time, if he wanted to keep Ava, he had to learn a new way to love, not with his wallet, but with his heart. The next day, Adrian went to the community center where Ava taught the children. She still wore her simple uniform, hair tied high, her eyes tired but bright. When she spotted him, Ava froze for a beat, her brows knitting together. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice flat. Adrian lowered his head slightly like a student admitting his mistake. Not to buy you off, not to make excuses, just to lend a hand. Ava stayed silent, ready to refuse. But the children had already burst into cheers upon seeing him. "Hey, it's Mr. ABC Lawyer," they shouted, running toward him. The silly nickname forced a reluctant laugh out of Ava. Finally, she sighed and nodded. "Fine, but you're only an assistant. No showing off, no lectures." "Yes, ma'am," Adrian replied, raising his hand like a soldier. Class began with the alphabet, but Adrian had an idea. He wrote on the board, "Playground Law." "All right, kids, imagine there's just one swing. How do we share it fairly?" "Take turns," a girl shouted. "5 minutes each," a boy added. Adrian nodded and wrote down each rule they came up with. The class buzzed with excitement, laughter filling the room. Ava watched from the side, a strange feeling stirring inside her. Adrian wasn't preaching dull theories. He was turning the law into a game. The children adored it. When class ended, one boy whispered to him shyly, "Mister, will you come back tomorrow?" Adrian ruffled the boy's hair. "If Miss Ava lets me, I will." Ava heard it, but only turned away without a word. Even so, her heart skipped an unfamiliar beat. In the days that followed, Adrian continued to show up, not with roses or luxury watches, but with small, ordinary acts. He carried chairs, wiped the chalkboard, sat cross-legged on the floor, cutting crafts with the kids. One day he taught them how to debate fairly, splitting into groups to argue whether cats or dogs were cuter. The room erupted with laughter, and Ava shook her head, half amused. He's insane, but a charming kind of insane. Outside the classroom, Adrian changed too. He rarely talked about himself anymore. Instead, he listened. He listened to Ava tell stories of her childhood, how her mother worked as a diner waitress, how she once juggled 3 jobs just to stay afloat. He remembered every detail. One evening, Ava sighed. "I hate cooking instant noodles. They always come out half raw or mushy." Adrian immediately straightened. "Then give me a chance to prove otherwise." The next day, he arrived with a bag full of ingredients: eggs, scallions, sausage. In the tiny community center kitchen, he worked with intense focus, timing every second as if he were signing a multi-million-dollar contract. The result? Steaming noodles topped with golden runny eggs and fresh scallions. Adrian set the bowl proudly in front of her. "Behold the art of instant noodles." Ava tasted it, her eyes widening. "This is actually good. Then from now on, I'm the official noodle chef." "That title doesn't come with a salary, you know." "I don't need one. Your smile is enough." Ava froze. The words weren't fancy, just quietly sincere. So sincere she couldn't bring herself to meet his eyes. Late that night, after the children had gone, the two of them sat outside the center. The breeze was cool, and the street lamps glowed over the empty courtyard. Adrian popped open 2 sodas, handing one to her. "I don't know how long it'll take for you to trust me again," he said softly, "but I'm willing to be here every day. No grand gifts, no pretty promises, just the truth." Ava took the can but stayed silent, her gaze fixed on the quiet street. Inside, the wall of doubt hadn't crumbled, but cracks had begun to show. Over the past days, she had seen him differently, not as the rich man pretending to be poor, but as someone fumbling, learning how to start over. The following week, Adrian showed up with glue-stained hands. He sat on the floor making paper kites with the kids, the string constantly tangling. The children roared with laughter. "Mister, you're huge, but so clumsy." Adrian laughed helplessly and turned to Ava. "See, I'm a complete failure in the fine arts industry." Ava doubled over laughing, but her eyes softened. She realized Adrian didn't care about being mocked, as long as it made the children happy. A man who once lived in luxury was now willing to sit on the floor with messy scraps of paper. It touched her more than any gift ever could. One weekend night, Ava passed the community kitchen and spotted Adrian scrubbing dishes. He wore an old apron, sleeves splattered with water, his face scrunched as soap suds clung stubbornly. Something inside her chest softened at the sight. "Hey, who said you could use my apron?" she asked, pretending to scold. Adrian turned, flashing a bright grin. "Just borrowing. Want to sue me? I'll gladly defend myself." "A soap suds lawyer, huh?" "Exactly. And my defense is Washing dishes is also a form of love. Ava burst into laughter but said no more. Quietly, she picked up a towel and stood beside him, drying plates. Their hands brushed through the foam, lingering for a second too long. Neither pulled away. Neither spoke. Adrian never begged for forgiveness outright. Instead, he proved himself in small ways, mopping floors beside her, helping the kids with their studies, and sharing a bowl of noodles. No flowery speeches, no lavish presents, just patience. Ava didn't voice it yet, but she was beginning to see it clearly. Behind his clumsy efforts lay a sincerity that couldn't be faked. Rich or poor, this was something real. And perhaps from these small things, the fragile seed of trust was slowly taking root again in her heart. It all began with a single photograph. That afternoon, Adrian had carried a box of supplies into the community center for Ava. Coincidentally, a passing reporter snapped the moment. A fleeting frame of Adrian Laurent, the millionaire who rarely smiled, looking down at Ava with unmistakable warmth. Within hours, the image was plastered across a tabloid site under the sensational headline, "Millionaire Adrian Laurent secretly involved with a hotel janitor?" The gossip spread like wildfire. Online columns speculated about a mismatched love affair, mocking it as a Cinderella story gone wrong. One article sneered, "Perhaps Adrian is seeking a new experience after being dumped by his glamorous fiancée." Ava was stunned. She scrolled through each word, her heartbeat hammering in her ears. At the center, parents whispered in corners, colleagues cast curious glances. That evening, her phone vibrated endlessly. Anonymous texts ranging from ridicule to veiled threats to invasive curiosity. She had never felt so exposed, so small. Adrian heard the news during a board meeting. A council member, half joking, remarked, "Mr. Laurent, should the company prepare a press release about your humble love life?" Laughter erupted around the table. Adrian's grip tightened on his pen, but this time he didn't stay silent. He raised his head, voice cold and steady. "My private life is not a punchline, and no one has the right to turn an innocent woman into a spectacle." The laughter died instantly. Adrian's gaze was so sharp, so unyielding, that no one dared to add another word. The next morning, chaos awaited outside the community center. Dozens of reporters blocked Ava's path, cameras flashing, questions fired like arrows. "Are you really Adrian Laurent's new lover? How long have you known him? Are you using this relationship as a way out of poverty?" Ava froze, panic rising as she stumbled backward. Each question pierced her fragile calm, threatening to shatter what little peace she clung to. Then a tall figure cut through the crowd. Adrian stepped forward, placing himself firmly between her and the wall of cameras. His white shirt was damp from the drizzle, but his eyes burned with unwavering resolve. "Enough!" his voice rang out. "This is my private matter. Do not drag Ava into it. She is not a public figure. If you want a story, write about me." The reporters buzzed, unsettled. One of them pressed on, "So you admit the rumor is true?" Adrian looked directly into the nearest camera, without a flicker of hesitation. "The only truth I will confirm is this. Ava is not a toy for your amusement. She deserves respect, just like every one of you." The air went still. For a moment, no one dared ask another question. Adrian took Ava's hand and guided her firmly through the gates, leaving the frustrated flashes of cameras behind. Inside the classroom, Ava still trembled. She turned to him, incredulous. "Why did you do that? You know the press will only dig deeper now." Adrian smiled faintly, though fatigue shadowed his features. "I know, but I also know that if I didn't step in today, you'd be left to face it all alone. And that I could never allow." Ava's breath caught. For the first time in her life, someone had stood between her and the storm. Not with empty words, but with undeniable action. Since childhood, she had endured silently when belittled, when overlooked. But here was a man who didn't just claim to care. He had proven it before the entire world. "Adrian!" Her voice faltered, thick with unspoken emotion. He simply smiled, his eyes softening. "You don't need to say anything. Just know that this time, I won't walk away." The days that followed were a blur of headlines. Some continued to mock her, others speculated endlessly. But gradually, a shift began. New articles appeared. Adrienne Laurent, a millionaire who defends a worker against the media frenzy. The image of him shielding Ava circulated widely, praised as a true act of a man. Ava read those words, her heart trembling. The sting of past betrayal still lingered, yet she couldn't deny what she saw now. Adrian was changing, not through extravagant gifts or hollow promises, but through acts that were courageous, real, and deeply sincere. One evening, Ava asked Adrian to meet her on the rooftop of the center. The night air was cool, scented with the first blossoms of the season. She leaned against the railing, silent for a long moment before finally speaking. "I don't know if I can trust you completely yet," she admitted softly. "But that day, when you stood in front of me, something felt different." Adrian stepped closer, not touching, only gazing out at the same stretch of sky. "I'm not asking for instant forgiveness. All I want is for you to know this. This time, I'll protect you, even if the entire world turns its back." Ava turned, meeting his eyes. The arrogance was gone. What remained was a quiet steadiness and a tenderness that made her chest tighten. She pressed her lips together, afraid to let her heart betray her too soon. They stood there in silence, side by side, the city humming faintly below. The distance between them was still there, but so was an invisible thread, fragile yet unbreakable, weaving them slowly back together. That night, as Adrian disappeared into the shadows beyond the gate, Ava remained watching him go. Fear still lingered in her chest, but so did something new, the unfamiliar comfort of being protected. And deep inside, she knew, if Adrian kept proving himself, not with wealth, but with courage, then perhaps one day, the broken trust between them might bloom again. The storm of public opinion eventually quieted down. After a few days of frenzy, the media shifted its focus to chase other hot stories. The community center returned to its familiar rhythm, the children's voices echoing as they read, the chalk dust in the air, the sound of laughter ringing down the halls. But for Ava, nothing felt quite the same. She could not forget the image of Adrian standing before the press, shielding her with unwavering resolve. That was not Adrian the millionaire, nor Adrian the man pretending to be poor. It was simply a man of flesh and blood, willing to take every blow so she wouldn't have to. For the first time, Ava asked herself, had she been too harsh, walking away from someone who was clearly trying to change for her? That afternoon, Adrian showed up again. He wasn't wearing a suit, nor was there a driver in sight, just a simple shirt, a relaxed look, and a bag of cookies for the children in his hands. Ava waited until he finished arranging the boxes before quietly calling, "Adrian?" He turned surprised. There was still hesitation in his eyes, as if every word from her might be the final goodbye. Ava drew in a breath, her voice slow but firm. "I am willing to give you another chance." Adrian's eyes lit up instantly, but before he could speak, Ava raised her hand to stop him. "But this time there will be boundaries, clear ones." "Boundaries?" Adrian frowned slightly. "You must respect my independence. I don't want to be the dependent one, or the rescued one. I want the right to choose, to stand on my own 2 feet. Adrian listened intently, then nodded. "I promise." Ava held his gaze, then added softly, "And I will try to learn how to trust. I've been deceived too many times in life, and what happened with you only made me more afraid. But if I keep doubting forever, we'll never get anywhere." A faint smile tugged at Adrian's lips, as though a great weight had been lifted. He extended his hand. "Then let's start over, as 2 ordinary people." Ava looked at that hand for a moment before placing hers into his. It was warm, steady, not too tight, not too loose. Just right, enough to make her feel safe. The days that followed were truly a time when they began to learn how to love, just as they had promised. Adrian no longer appeared as the dazzling millionaire. He helped Ava arrange classrooms, move desks, even wash chalkboard rags. One time when Ava had to rush home for a family matter, Adrian stepped into the class himself and taught the kids how to draft a fair contract by turning candy trades into a game. Ava, in return, tried to trust more. When Adrian offered to drive her home in his car, she hesitated but nodded. When he spoke about a major project, she didn't guard herself anymore. She listened, asked questions, and even gave thoughtful suggestions. Adrian realized with surprise that Ava wasn't just the cheerful janitor. She was sharp, logical, smarter than some of his partners at the table. One weekend evening, they went shopping at the little street market. Adrian insisted on carrying the basket while Ava carefully chose vegetables. The vendor laughed and teased, "What a lovely young couple you are." Ava's cheeks flushed red while Adrian chuckled lightly. "Thank you. I'll take that blessing in advance." Ava elbowed him playfully, but warmth spread through her chest. Simple moments like this convinced her that love didn't require yachts or mansions, just two people standing side by side, smiling as they bought a bunch of spinach together. Back at Ava's small apartment, they cooked. Adrian was no longer the helpless man in the kitchen. He had learned to fry eggs without burning them, to season instant noodles just right. Ava sat at the table, chin resting in her palm, watching him bustle around. "I used to think you only knew how to order fancy dinners," she teased. "And now you know I can also cook a 20-minute meal with eggs and noodles." Adrian replied with a grin, "And I'm happy about that." Ava looked at him, and the thought arose unbidden. Perhaps between us there is no longer the distance of wealth or poverty. Only two people are learning to love as equals. Still, things weren't always smooth. Sometimes Ava worried aloud, "Are you sure we can work? Your world and mine are too different." Each time Adrian would simply answer with calm conviction, "Differences mean we have more to learn. And I'm willing to learn, as long as I learn with you." The words soothed her every time, dissolving her fears little by little. One late evening, after classes ended, they sat together on the steps of the center. The night was still, the yellow glow of the lamps casting soft halos around them. Adrian handed Ava a soda can, just like he had since the first day they met. "You know," Ava murmured, eyes fixed on the distance, "I used to think I'd never trust a rich man. But you've shown me, maybe what matters isn't whether you're rich or poor. It's whether you see me as your equal." Adrian turned to her, a gentle smile in his eyes. "And you've shown me that love doesn't need a bank account." They clinked their soda cans together. A tiny clink, soft but brimming with meaning. That night, as Adrian drove away, Ava stood at the gate, watching the taillights fade into the distance. For the first time in years, she felt she wasn't alone. And for both of them, it was clear. They were no longer standing in two separate worlds. They were on the same road now, slowly but surely, moving toward each other. Late autumn had settled in, a crisp chill slipping through the little apartment windows. That evening, after finishing her late class, Ava trudged home, tired yet oddly at peace. She pushed the door open and froze. The familiar room glowed with warm yellow light, but tonight it wasn't silent. On the tiny dining table sat a steaming bowl of instant noodles, a fried egg with golden edges, and two cans of chilled soda waiting side by side. "Adrian," she whispered. He stepped out of the kitchen, not in a tailored suit, not wearing a luxury watch, just a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His expression carried a flicker of nervous tension, so unlike his usual air of confidence. "Welcome home," he said softly. "I prepared a little surprise." Ava set her bag down, her heart stirring at the sight before her. But before she could ask anything, Adrian walked closer. His gaze was steady, filled with something vast and weighty. Then he dropped to one knee. From his pocket he pulled a small velvet box. The light caught on the simple ring inside, not the glittering diamonds of grand proposals, but something far more humble. Adrian drew in a breath. His deep voice trembled ever so slightly. "Ava, I can't promise you castles. I can't promise to buy you the world. But I promise this. My whole life, I'll make noodles with you, fry eggs with you, drink soda with you, and laugh with you through the simplest of days." Ava's throat tightened. Her eyes blurred as she looked at the man who once stood dazzling in the spotlight. The man she had once hated for his lies, now kneeling on the floor of her small apartment, offering her a ring wrapped in simplicity. "You," Ava laughed through her tears. "Adrian, you're insane." "Insane, maybe," Adrian smiled, "but honest. Will you say yes?" Ava nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks, her lips curving into the brightest smile. Yes, yes, I will. Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger. There were no fireworks, no violins, only the thudding of hearts and the delicious aroma of instant noodles filling the room. And yet, it was the most beautiful moment Ava had ever lived. Their wedding followed not long after. It wasn't a lavish affair in a castle or five-star hotel. Instead, it was held in the courtyard of the community center. The children blew up balloons, neighbors strung ribbons across the walls, and friends brought pots of flowers from their own gardens. Ava wore a simple cream-colored dress, nothing extravagant, but radiant nonetheless. Adrian stood beside her in a light suit, his gaze never leaving her for a heartbeat. When the pastor asked, "Do you vow to remain with her in every circumstance, in wealth and in poverty, in sickness and in health, until the very end of your days?" Adrian squeezed Ava's hand firmly and answered without hesitation, "I do." When it was Ava's turn, her voice trembled, yet carried unwavering strength. "I do as well." Applause erupted. Children shouted gleefully, tossing confetti made from torn newspaper scraps. Friends, colleagues, and neighbors beamed with joy. There were no grand fireworks, only ripples of laughter and the warmth of community. The wedding feast was simple, yet brimming with cheer. The main course? A deluxe version of instant noodles, cooked by Adrian himself, this time with eggs, greens, and slices of sausage. Guests ate and laughed, teasing, "Never seen a wedding where the specialty dish is instant noodles." Adrian only shrugged, his eyes sparkling as he glanced at Ava. "But to me, it's the finest meal of all, because I made it with my wife." Ava's face flushed and laughter rang all around them. As the celebration drew to a close, the golden afternoon light spilled across the courtyard. Ava stood with Adrian, their hands entwined, her heart overflowing with happiness. She thought back to everything: the day he appeared as a poor man, her anger when she uncovered his truth, and the countless moments her heart had stirred despite reason. Adrian had once been the abandoned man, left behind when poor, mistrusted when rich. But today he was no longer alone. He had found a love that was true, not bound by money, not adorned with grandeur, but woven from pure sincerity. Ava whispered in his ear, "You know, I never thought instant noodles could become a symbol of love." Adrian chuckled, pulling her closer. "That's because, from now on, it's our wedding dish." That night, back in their little apartment, Ava hung her wedding dress by the rack while Adrian draped his suit jacket over a chair. They sat cross-legged on the floor, soda cans in hand, tapping them together with a soft clink, a quiet vow for the days to come. No extravagance, no noise, just two people, two hearts, and a love both simple and enduring. Once a man abandoned in ruin, Adrian had now become the man who found true love, because he had learned how to love without a wallet. And Ava had proven that happiness does not spring from splendor, but from companionship and understanding. And so in their story, it was a bowl of noodles, a fried egg, and a simple promise that wrote the love of a lifetime.